Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the County Planning Committee held today on the 2nd of July 2025. I'm Councillor Gillian Campbell and I'll be your chair for this meeting. Before we start, I just want to go through some housekeeping matters. This meeting is broadcast live on YouTube, and may I remind people that they should keep their mobile phones and other devices switched off and put on silent. Microphones are to be switched off at all times until invited to speak. And when you're invited to speak, switch on the microphone and introduce yourself. And now, I just want to introduce you to the officers present. There are several officers here today. Can I start with you, Kirsty?
Kirsty Charlton, Committee Services.
Neil Carter, I'm the solicitor to the committee.
Stephen Reid, I'm the planning manager, Chair.
Chris Shields, Senior Planning Officer.
Claire Teasdale, Principal Planning Officer.
Brian Weatherall, Drainage and Coastal Protection Manager.
Thank you. Now we can start the meeting. And firstly, are there any apologies for absence?
Councillor Liz Madison.
Thank you. Do we have any substitute members?
No, Chair.
Thanks. And are there any declarations of interest? No? Thank you. And now can we approve the minutes of the last meeting held on the 12th of June? Do I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Bellingham proposed?
Chair, Councillor Bellingham.
Propose approval. Do I have a seconder?
And I'll second that, Chair.
Councillor Hope, thank you. We now move on to the main business. We have 3 applications to be dealt with today, and we have Officer Chris Shields, who's going to introduce the first application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is for the installation of a solar farm battery energy storage system, to abbreviate to BESS throughout the report. Associated infrastructure such as hard standing area and internal access track, and this is at land at Hare Hill Farm, Haswell Plough, Durham. Before we get into it, I just want to make a quick update to the biodiversity net gain conditions in the report, and this is going to be the same for all 3 items but different conditions, and we'll introduce it separately. But condition 19 is to be deleted from the report, as conditions 20 and 21 adequately cover the implementation of the habitat creation works. Confirmation to us of such works and subsequent management in accordance with the Habitats Management and Monitoring Plan. Okay. Now, I'd like to thank the members that came out on the bus this morning. I think we had a good trip, and we saw a lot of the site. This is a far out view of where the site is. You can see from here the scale of it. On the trip this morning, we pulled into the site at Ludworth, stopped there, travelled around down towards Thornley, Wheatley Hill, back up through Shot and Colliery, and back to Haswell Plough at the top of the site there. I'll go in a bit further so we can see it in an aerial. Members will recall we parked approximately here this morning to look across the site in the key view from this location. You will note that there was areas of plantation here and further around, and that the site would wrap around those. Additional plantings proposed around here and gapping up the hedgerow on this level. Further hedgerow across here to screen that view of heading south down New Road. Also looking from this side, the site access will be off New Road, just to the north of Sunridge Farm, which is in here. As we moved around the site, there was fleeting glances of the site through the hedgerows, up through Shotton Colliery, across, and you could see where the site was located in relation to the wind turbines and the overhead power lines. There's a gap in the site here to account for the underground gas pipeline and also to avoid the overhead cables again. From the north, very limited views because of existing planning, topography and other land uses in there. You had the access down to Hare Hill Farm, which is located here, and the Hare Hill Mews developments, properties within the site there. Now, these properties would have views from the upstairs windows of the solar farm, although there would be planting around the site to help screen this. Again, there would be views from those houses. That's unavoidable. However, the nearest properties are actually to the northwest of the site, just here. I believe it's Fawnley Cottage. If there's any questions later on, we can come back to this slide. So this is the site layout. Obviously, it looks a little bit more sparse than on the aerial before because there's areas where there are not panels. You can see in the centre of the site where the batteries would be, and the two areas which would be site compounds. The site entrance over from the west from New Road. Again, all the areas that are blue on there are where the solar panels would be. And you can see where they're avoiding the gas pipe and the overhead cables. This is the landscape strategy for the site. The areas of dark green are where there's already existing planting. It's tricky to see at this scale, I appreciate, and on the PowerPoint, but areas where there's orange dots, they're new trees to be planted, and around the edges, the hedgerow would either be gapped up or replanted entirely where the section's missing, and overall allowed to grow a little bit higher than what's been in there previously. All the areas of pale green would be resown with a meadow grass mix to improve biodiversity across the site. So this is the access to the site from New Road to the west of the site. Members on the bus this morning may have recalled seeing this. It's quite tricky to see at the moment. As part of the access improvements, the visibility would be improved by cutting back the trees on both sides, and obviously there'll be a formalised access going into there as well. That would be the only access into the site for construction and maintenance. There are other ways to get to the site, and there was a question this morning about if there was an incident and this wasn't available. There are ways into the site from the north and from the east. So this is a view of the site looking towards the northwest. You can see here the relationship of the turbines and the power cables there. You would potentially see the panels on the hillside in this view. This is from a public right-of-way on the eastern side of the site. Here's a view looking west. Again, we would have the panels higher up on the hills, not in the foreground. Looking north across the site, so you can see the two rows of power lines here, and you would have Shotton Colliery off to the right of the picture here. This is more or less from where we initially stopped the bus near to Ludworth, looking up to the hillside. So this hedgerow would be gapped up and allowed to grow taller, and then you would have the panels sat behind that and wrapping around the plantations here. So in terms of representations, we've had no objections from statutory and internal consultees, subject to conditions where appropriate. A total of 80 representations have been received. That's made up of 25 objections and 55 letters of support. There's a further 2 representations that we're just offering comments. So in terms of objection, the matters raised by members of the public being visual and landscape impact, traffic and highway safety, noise and disturbance, hazardous materials and fire risk, loss of trees and biodiversity, heritage impact, overbearing layout and enclosure, ground stability and drainage, supply chain ethics and waste management, ecological assessment validity, archaeological impact, loss of agricultural land, public health and well-being, skydiving safety concerns, compensation and liability issues, overall policy conflict and inappropriateness of location. We've also had representation from Graham Morris, MP, has said that he supports green energy in principle but objects due to visual harm to local communities, potential noise issues and overall impact on landscape and amenity. Graham urges a site visit before the decision, which we carried out this morning. The Campaign for the Protection of Rural England objects due to impacts on residential amenity, landscape and battery safety, and they highlight overbearing visual effects on nearby residents, risks from battery storage, and stress the need to consider local character and safety while supporting solar energy in principle. Now, these issues are all being addressed in the report, but I'm happy to take any questions on those when we get into the debate. Now, in terms of support, we've had notes of significant investment in County Durham, well designed and appropriately sited, generates a significant amount of renewable energy, supports climate objectives, allows continued sheep grazing, includes a 40-year decommissioning plan, retains and enhances hedgerows for biodiversity and screening, supports the local community and climate resilience. In summary, the development would provide a significant renewable energy source, providing clean energy to over 17,600 homes, reducing dependence on fossil fuel power stations with additional employment benefits, as well as biodiversity and landscape improvements. Whilst it's accepted that the proposed solar farm would have an impact on the landscape, it is considered that the benefits of the development in terms of energy supply and security, support for renewable energy, biodiversity enhancement and job creation would outweigh that harm in accordance with County Durham Plan Policy 33. The proposals have generated significant public interest. Concerns expressed regarding the proposals have been taken into account and carefully balanced against the scheme's wider social, economic and public benefits. All of the material considerations have been taken into account in the determination of the solar farm application and found to be acceptable. The proposed development is considered to broadly accord with the relevant policy of the County Durham Plan and relevant sections of the MPPF. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Right, I'm informed that we've got several speakers and we have 3 objectors and 2 supporters. I've decided, and I think it's been agreed, that there'll be 10 minutes to be shared between the objectors and 10 minutes to be shared between the supporters. And I understand that you've had the opportunity to discuss between you how this is going to be divided up. And I'm informed that Mrs. Janice Ferguson is going to speak first.
Hi there. Yes, I'd just like to give a very personal impact, being someone I live at number 1 Harehill Mews, right in the middle of the proposed development with my daughter and my granddaughter. I worked for 6 days a week for 35 years to be able to afford the house, and I expected that I was going to live in it for my retirement. If the solar farm is approved, it'll affect me and my family for the rest of my life and for most of theirs. I don't see any way of being able to sell the house right in the middle of the solar development. It's easy to dismiss our concerns and say the word NIMBY, we hear it a lot, but basically we're going to feel like prisoners in our own home. In every direction, we'll be surrounded by wire fencing, security lighting, and CCTV cameras, and that is in every direction. We'll have to endure at least a year of dust and drilling, whilst 90,000 panels are pile driven into the ground all around us. The effect of this on our mental and physical well-being can't be overstated. We fear the long-term effects of living with such large-scale electromagnetic radiation, as well as being right next to a battery energy storage system which notoriously catch fire and release toxic fumes into the environment. The proposal allows panels as close as 100 metres to our homes, well within the distance that the audible sound of the buzzing from the inverters and transformers can be heard, and we'll have to endure this for the next 40 years. We are just the little people here, but our properties and the quality of life are those that are going to be impacted the most. I would urge the committee to agree with me that this location is not suitable on the grounds that it is too overbearing on our small community, or to at least visit the site and see the predicament that we've been put into, view the landscape and the nature that is about to be
30
destroyed.
seconds remaining.
Thank you, I'm finished.
Thank you. The next speaker, Mr. Robert Adcock Forster.
Thank you, Chair. Robert Adcock Foster, I'm Senior Casework Manager to Graham Morris, the Member of Parliament for Easington, and I'm speaking on his behalf in his absence today. The following comments are made from Mr. Morris. I want to express my strong objection to this planning application, which proposes the installation of a solar farm, battery energy storage system and associated infrastructure at Hare Hill Farm, Hassel Plough. From the outset, it has been clear that there is significant local opposition to this development. The strength of feeling amongst local residents has been consistent and widespread, evident from the large number of meetings held locally throughout the consultation process. Whilst I fully support the UK's commitment to green energy and reducing carbon emissions, we must strike a careful balance. It is vital that such developments respect local landscape and the well-being of nearby residents. In this case, however, I believe that that balance has not been achieved. The fact that these residents will be encompassed by the solar farm cannot fail to have an impact on property values. The proposed site is alarmingly close to residential properties and sits on undulating land, which will cause a major visual impact on the neighbouring communities of Ludworth and Thornley. The thought of residents being surrounded by rows of solar panels is understandably distressing. The proposal also is one of many similar developments that seem to be disproportionately targeting East Durham. The area is now seen as saturation of such schemes which offer little tangible benefits to the local community, particularly in terms of long-term employment or economic uplift. Furthermore, the potential for wind noise from open steel structures, especially during storms and harsh winter gales, is deeply concerning. This development poses a real risk of creating an unacceptable level of noise pollution. It is also misleading to describe this scheme as temporary. A 40-year lifespan means this project will dominate the local landscape for a significant portion, if not the entirety, of a person's life. That is not temporary to those who would have to live beside it. Beyond the noise and visual intrusion, this project will cause serious and lasting harm to the character and distinctiveness of the local area.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. In light of all this, I urge the committee to consider the scale and proximity of the development when determining if this location is suitable for such a proposal, and whether councillors would themselves want to live beside such a scheme if they found themselves in the very position of the local residents here today. I fully support the objections raised by residents and hope members of the committee will give these concerns full weight they deserve in your deliberations and reject this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Dr. Brian Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the residents and who are directly affected by this development, so we speak against the development. And residents would like to convey that they're not actually against green energy developments, but do categorically object to the proposed site. I'd also like to make members aware of the intrinsic balance, power imbalance in this whole process, whereas developers seem to have unlimited resources to generate a very detailed and comprehensive planning application that's almost beyond challenge, where residents are simply left shocked and uncertain about how to proceed with no resource base. Having said that, I've read the objections that residents have put forward, and they have produced very powerful and compelling arguments, and I'd ask members to take that on board in the light of that power imbalance. I'm not going to go over those objections now in detail, and indeed the Planning Officer's report actually covers very well those objections. So I'm not really going to go over them, as I've said. However, the Planning Officer's report, what residents are saying is they absolutely and categorically disagree with the conclusion and the recommendation of that report. In saying that, paragraph 320 of the Planning Officer's report does acknowledge that there will be a harm impact on the landscape if this development was to go ahead. But the benefits would outweigh that harm. And I would ask the questions for members to ponder on benefits for who, certainly not the residents of the communities. To be clear, the National Planning Policy Framework, the County Durham Plan, and indeed the Government's UK Solar PV strategy all state that any proposed development should not in any way harm landscape. For example, County Durham Plan Policy 39 states that all new developments only permitted where they would not cause unacceptable harm to the character, quality and distinctiveness of the landscape or to important features of views. The County Durham Plan Policy 10 states new developments must not cause unacceptable harm to the intrinsic character, beauty and tranquillity of the countryside. And indeed, the government's own UK solar PV strategy states that development should be appropriately sited and give proper weight to environmental considerations such as landscape, visual impact, heritage and local amenity. Provide local communities opportunities to influence decisions that affect them. Well, we didn't do that one very well. By applying any of the above policy statements, the fact that the planning officer's report accepts harm will be caused to the landscape by their development, then it must follow that refusal of the planning application. And we're not alone in that. We've heard from the local members who are against it, the local MP, and indeed the campaign to protect rural England. So there is a lot of support against the development being allowed to go forward. And residents would respectively request that members refuse planning permission to this proposed development based on the rationale that if it would allow to go ahead, there would be unacceptable harm to the character, quality and distinctiveness of the landscape and countryside surrounding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And now move on to Mr. Kenneth Morton, the supporters.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair and members. This scheme has your planning officer's recommendation for approval and has been rigorously examined and tested by your planning team experts and found to be compliant with both Durham County Council and national planning policy guidance. In preparation for this application, we have discussed the scheme with the local community and nearest neighbours for over a year. We have held 2 specific meetings for near neighbours in the autumn of 2024 and a pre-application community event in November 24. And we have had the opportunity to review and consider community feedback on the project. Despite its adverse economic impact on the project, this feedback has resulted in some key changes to the scheme, including that in ensuring that setbacks to the arrays from nearby properties are a minimum of 100 metres from those properties, the length of a football pitch, the removal of approximately 4.5 hectares of arrays in direct view of Hare Hill Farmhouse, and the removal of approximately 4 hectares of arrays along the access to Hare Hill Mews steadings, both to help address individual neighbour concerns. We have also, while not a legal or technical requirement, at the request of the local skydiving club, we have also removed approximately 25 hectares of arrays within the 2.4-kilometre Peterlee parachute drop zone protection area. It should be noted that the planning application has received over 50 letters of support, significantly more than the number of objections lodged, and that neither Shadforth Parish Council nor the adjoining parish councils have considered the proposals, having considered the proposals, have chosen to object. Durham County Council and Shadforth Parish Council have within their sustainability policies to encourage sustainable development, enhance biodiversity, reduce carbon emissions, all of which we believe are addressed by the scheme. We fully recognise that energy, agriculture and biodiversity are important, and by working closely with landowners, we have sought to deliver a balanced proposal which integrates all 3 land uses. The scheme will produce enough clean energy to power the equivalent of 17,600 homes per annum and will contribute to the UK Government Action Plan to increase our solar generation from around 18 gigawatts to 45 gigawatts by 2030. Solar is one of the cheapest forms of energy generation. It's quick to deploy, quiet, and will directly contribute to the government's ambitions of lowering electricity bills for the consumer and reducing the UK's reliance on importing electricity from volatile foreign markets, which, as we have seen from recent times, can have a huge impact on consumer bills. The project will also provide specific benefits to the local area. Although not a planning consideration, we have engaged with the local parish council and community representatives, and we are offering a community benefit fund that over the 40-year life of the project will deliver approximately £950,000 of much needed investment to the local area. Crucially, the local community will decide how and to whom this funding is allocated, drawing on their own local knowledge to support what matters most to them. In addition, once constructed, the scheme, unlike its current agricultural use, will contribute approximately £2.1 million through business rates to Durham County Council over the life of the project based on 2024 figures. During construction, we estimate the scheme will support around 66 jobs, and throughout its operational life, a further 5 to 10 roles will be created through ongoing maintenance and management. And where possible, we will look to use local labour and facilities, thus contributing to the upskilling, employment and economic growth within the local area. This scheme, as well as generating energy, will help 2 agricultural businesses to diversify in a period when agricultural returns are marginal due to volatile markets and increasing fuel and fertiliser costs. This scheme enables those businesses to receive an agricultural income from grazing sheep on the site and a secondary income from leasing the land for solar, safeguarding the long-term future of those farming businesses. DEFRA shows that County Durham just has over 110,000 acres of agricultural land, not including rough grazing. The Hare Hill Solar Park is just under 63 hectares, representing only 0.06% of that arable land.
1 minute remaining.
Due to intensive farming practices, a significant decline in biodiversity has occurred across the site. As a result of our proposed biodiversity management plan, we anticipate a biodiversity net gain over the scheme area of some 63% by managing this land in a less intensive way. By planting new trees and hedges, allowing existing hedges to grow out, by setting aside 2.5 hectares of land for breeding waders support, and recreating the species-rich grasslands around the solar panels. Finally, this scheme has your planning officer's recommendation for approval. It seeks to minimise local impacts. It enables the survival of 2 local businesses, supports jobs and supports diversity. We therefore respectfully ask you to grant approval for this scheme.
Thank you, Mr Morton. And now, Michael Ford.
Aye. I've been at our farm Thornley for about 50 years. The part of Hare Hill, there's a 45-acre motorbike site and a rubbish tip on one side. On the other side, there's a 22-acre caravan storage park. All surrounding Shotton is there's 2-acre plots of where like people's bought bits of land and put caravans and built little houses there. The land is like third. You know, it's not good agricultural land. It's third, grade agricultural land. We have a lot of trouble with motorbikes for the last, ever since the motorbike track was put on, we've had a lot more motorbike incidents, people cutting the fences, driving over the fences, knocking trees down. We've even had 4-wheel drives driving in the fields, knocking the fences down. If you go up there, you'll see big, massive bricks where the gateways are to stop them getting in. And like farming in general is like declining, and you can't make a decent living, so you have to diversify into something else, and this is like a good way of doing it. And you can have sheep as well, you know what I mean, so you're still farming and you're having sheep and you get a little bit extra, to keep on top of the job. And that's about it.
Thank you, Mr Ford. So, now asking Chris if you've got any further comment.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief one to come back on, actually. It might be useful if members have their reports available, if you could turn to paragraph 49, and that is relating to policy 39 of the County Durham Plan, the landscape policy. Now, we don't have the full text here, there's more in the actual plan document itself, but essentially this is a planning balance policy where we're balancing benefits against harm. But the key word within the first sentence of this is unacceptable. So just to read in full, this policy states that proposals for new development will only be permitted where they would not cause unacceptable harm to the character, quality or distinctiveness of the landscape or to important features or views. Now, the objectors have correctly said that we've identified harm in assessing this proposal. There's no doubt about that. These developments always cause harm. It's very difficult to screen them on this scale. But in discussions with our landscape specialists, they've advised that that harm doesn't amount to unacceptable harm. So the first part of this policy isn't engaged, and we also don't need to go to having to override that harm with benefits. But in any case, we would consider the benefits of this development would have overridden that harm anyway. I just wanted to clarify that point for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to pick up on a point that Mr Adcock Foster raised about impact on property prices. As members will no doubt already be aware, the impact on property prices in connection with development isn't a material consideration to which regard can be had in the determination of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. So we've reached the point now where members, do you have any questions to ask? Councillor Hope and Councillor Wilkes next.
Thank you, Chair. I agree we must be looking at new innovative ways of ensuring energy security in the UK, while also taking care of the planet. The UK accounts for approximately 1% of global emissions. This is a small territorial emission compared to the global totals. Major strides towards net zero excuse me, as pushed by central government is making us poor, with some of the highest energy prices.
Can you just get to the question?
Yeah. Can we deliver, can the developer evidence that this plan will reduce energy prices to the locals in the area and how it will be achieved?
Thank you. Is that question addressed to the
I think it's a question
for the applicant?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Energy prices are set by a national market. We have no control over those. However, solar is one of the cheapest energy generation technologies that provides energy into that market. So yes, it does affect the overall prices and it will lower it, but that is not a local issue.
Thank you. Councillor Hope, any further comment? Question? No. Can I? Oh.
I've got quite a few questions, but I'll let other people get in as well.
I think Councillor Wilkes next.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to try and get a better understanding on the quality of the farmland. I think it's 61 hectares of 3B farmland, of which is almost entirely identical. I'd be interested to know whether that is normal, that 61 hectares and the entire area is classed as 3B farmland. But also just some clarity in terms of, obviously, we're being told that the farmland would carry on being used. It appears to have grassland and arable farming around that area as well. And generally we would say with arable farming that, you know, you wouldn't want to stop arable farming in comparison to grassland and turning over to grazing. But it'd be useful to know what the additional fertilisers and the like that have to be put on this land in order to be able to actually have arable farming on there, because clearly, and officers can clarify for me, but there is an understanding that 3B farmland can be used for solar farms, and that we wouldn't be able, if we were minded to turn down an application purely on the grounds of 3B farmland being taken out of the agricultural system.
Thank you. Is that addressed to you, Chris? Can you answer that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilkes. There's been an independent third-party assessment of the farmland to confirm that it is 3B in its entirety. Not particularly unusual for Durham. Most lands typically 3A, 3B, to a lesser extent 4 as you get further south. In terms of you looking at a refusal reason, it wouldn't be sustainable to refuse it on the basis of it being not best and most versatile land. In fact, even if it was, that would still be a difficult refusal reason, unless it was the whole site and it was significantly higher level.
Next question. Councillor Bellingham, and you first.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking at the employability. Obviously, I refer to socio-economic impact assessment submitted on the 23rd of December 24, where it states that there's approximately 66 jobs going to be created directly or indirectly. Are these people going to be employed from local sources? And also, if I may, it says that it's going to be one person's going to be employed based remotely in order to look after this site. Does this mean that this person is going to be remotely based within County Durham, or is it going to be from somewhere else across the country?
Thank you. I think the applicant might be able to answer that one. It was in your impact report.
Yeah, so in terms of job creation, there will be a requirement for the contractor, where possible, to use local contractors to provide services to the build of the job, particularly around the civil work. So there'll be local civil companies who can provide services to build the access tracks, the hard standings, and so on and so forth. There's wider benefits in terms of local businesses. They're going to need accommodation, they're going to need food, they're going to need subsidence, that sort of thing. So there's wider benefits in that sense. In terms of the ongoing monitoring, yes, it would be remotely monitored, as most solar farms are, from a base somewhere in the UK, but there would be local engineers based in Durham to be able to attend the site to provide maintenance at short notice within a 2 to 4 hour period if there's a fault.
Thank you. Do you want to follow up on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So what we're saying is for the 12 months that the site's going to be constructed, County Durham would obviously take it, what the 66 people that are going to be employed would benefit County Durham, but the one person beyond that that is going to be based remotely, that wouldn't necessarily be somebody that is based in County Durham. That could be somebody from outside the county. So it's not going to benefit County Durham, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Alan Bell. I'm a member for Lumley and West Drayton Division. First of all, enormous sympathy for the lady who lives in the area where the application site is. That sounds absolutely nightmare. As previously discussed on this committee, these applications are coming in, month out. And, farmland, agricultural land, is still, that argument's still to be had, whether that's the best use of that land, agricultural land, and here we are again. And that, as I've said in this committee before, we still have applications coming in for housing developments, and we're still not putting solar panels on lots of roofs and factory units and everything. And it's that argument, whether the benefit outweighs the harm, the landscape harm. And that's where I am on this application. It's immense, it's enormous, which was seen on the site visit this morning. And that the landscape harm, it's not going to be overcome. 40 years, and it's anybody in here, there's not many of us will be around in 40 years' time, so it's a lifetime at the end of the day. And I, for one, I can't support this application. I would move refusal for landscape harm. Thank you, Chair.
Noted. I think we might want to continue with questions and debate from this point.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hope and then Councillor Stevenson. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Solar is a good renewable source, but it has many disadvantages, just like the gentleman said there. It's also got moral component disadvantages at home and abroad. Can the applicant confirm or evidence that the solar panels and lithium batteries are not going to be built by slaves, slave children and slave adults?
I don't think we can deal with that. It's not really a material consideration. Sorry, Kenny. Councillor Stevenson?
As a pilot myself, looking at the location of the solar farm compared to Shotton Airfield, I would be asking, obviously I know you've moved them so far away, but also there's glare going to be given to the pilots. Obviously, the runway position compared to the solar farm, you will have aircraft coming over, you know, with the solar farm on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, depending on which way the wind's blowing. What mitigation will you have for the glare to the pilots? Also, the safety concerns through emergency landings near the airfield. As we know, taking off and landing is the most dangerous element of aviation, and you're taking away a huge space of possible safety fields for pilots that have problems soon after takeoff or coming into land. And also, again, for the safety element for parachutists in the local area. I parachuted a lot when I was in the military, and it's okay seeing a little 2 kilometre space around the airfield, but you know, winds vary at different altitudes and you can be blown off track. Obviously, a nice open green fields are quite a safe place to land. Now, you've got solar panels where people can land that are parachuting, also aircraft that can land there in emergencies as well.
Thank you. So your question is, as a pilot, you feel that it's not providing enough safety?
Yeah, obviously there is. I know there is a small circle around the airfield that you've decided not to put panels in, but obviously, what safety impact is it going to have? You know, have you assessed the safety impact for pilots landed in the fields and also parachutists landing in the fields?
Thank you. Chris, can you answer that?
Yes, thank you for the question. So as part of the pre-application advice we gave to them, they moved the panels out of the allocated drop zone for the parachute club, so it's not within that. However, we did still have an issue that glare could be an issue, as you highlight. So a report was commissioned by the applicant by a specialist. They've identified that glare would occur on two days per year for 13 minutes. So one day in mid-April, one day in late August, for about 30 minutes on those 2 days. We don't have anybody internally to assess that, so we sent it out to another third party to confirm that that would be the case and that that wouldn't be a significant impact. Of course, that glare would only occur if on those 2 days in the year it's actually sunny at that time in the evening. In terms of risk, we consider that to be very, very low to negligible. So that's our assessment of that. 2 third parties have commented on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any more questions? Councillor Bellingham.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to go back to the benefit question. So back to the socio-economic impact assessment. We've got an expected community benefit arrangement of about £15,750 per year, which is approximately £1.72 per head. It doesn't seem very much. So can you just answer how does that compensate for the loss of the countryside, recreational amenity, etc.?
I think Neil has a word to say on that point.
Yeah, it's just to sort of re-emphasise the point that's already in the officer's report, that the existence or otherwise of that community benefit fund isn't something that's material. So I'm not really sure how the answer to that question that you've just asked is going to assist the assessment of this application.
Thank you, Neil. Any further questions? Councillor Wilkes and then Councillor Stevenson.
Just to follow up on the councillor's comment about community benefits, I can remember many years ago, and I'm sure the solicitor will recall me making some quite vociferous comments about the fact that we don't have a policy in this country which guarantees community benefit for these kind of schemes, whereas actually they do in Scotland for wind turbines. And I think it'd be useful to know, because I can recall seeing an application once where there was £48,000 promised, and that was it for a solar farm. And I was pretty unimpressed, to be fair. And I understand that it's not a material planning consideration for us, but how does that figure of £500,000 or so index linked, how does that actually compare to other applications that we get?
Can you answer that, Chris?
Well, it's significantly more than any other application we get, because generally For housing developments, for example, any money we receive from that is simply mitigation from harm they cause, such as extra pressure on schools or doctor services. In this case, and I must reiterate, it's not a material consideration. They're giving this money for free to the community. It's not to mitigate any harm at all. It's just a gift, and it shouldn't be considered here.
Thank you. Is it who's next? Councillor Stevenson.
In the report, it mentions returning the land to arable farmland after the 40-year period. Could the applicant answer my question with regards to what type of aggregate will be used in the land? Will it be recycled? And what impact would that have on the ability to farm that land going forward?
Can I address that to the applicant?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question? We never caught one of the words in the middle.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much wondering, are you going to be using recycled aggregates in the land, and has any impact assessment been done on how that would affect the ability to farm the land in the future?
The makeup of the hard standings and tracks, if that's what you're working towards with recycled aggregates.
But also obviously you're going to be burying cables. Will that be recycled sand that you're going to use to bury those cables? And you know, what effect would that have on the overall impact on the land to be used as farmland in the future?
Effectively, the ducting for the cables, if it is put in on sand, that would be up to the contractor to specify the quality. I don't know whether it would be recycled or not at this stage. The sort of end of the scheme, the cables will be pulled out, the mounts and piles taken away, and the land returned to agriculture. Hopefully in a better state than what it is at the moment.
Thank you. Who's next? Kenny?
Thank you, Chair. The gross added value of the project to be 73.8 million for the UK economy, but the local benefit is grossly inferior. Let us add the local business rates and the overall local benefit together over the 40-year lifespan. This equates to 5.15 million. Divide this over the 40 years and you get £128,750 per year. This, in my mind, is not fair value for money for the local populace, and it will not balance to benefit the local populace. May I ask for an explanation as to how the proposed site significantly benefits our communities directly in a financial way and on a long-term setting, as I can't see it?
Address that to the applicant.
The first part is the community benefit is £950,000 over the life of the scheme, not just £500,000. That's not the figures. And 2.1 million in business rates. So that would be about 3 million in total. With regards the scheme itself, we have specified in the economics report what jobs will be created and how that will benefit the community. There's nothing further that we can comment on that at the moment.
Thank you. Come in, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And I can see where Councillor Hope is coming from here, Chair, and probably one or two other questions in terms of the benefits of the development. But I think it's probably important that I've just reinforced what I think Neil advised committee earlier in terms of the benefit of the community fund, which is put forward here. Yeah, it may well be as members and officers and members of the public might all have a different view in terms of whether that's a good deal or a bad deal, but pulling it back to the planning considerations here, Chair, and again I think something Chris mentioned earlier before in his presentation, rightly or wrongly, there's no reference in the NPPF National Planning Policy Framework, or indeed in the County Durham Plan Policy, that requires applicants for this form of development to bring forward a suite of community benefits as part of any planning application. So I think probably again just to follow Neil's advice before, Chair, I would urge caution in terms of giving too much weight in the decision making to the benefits of the development, when I don't, you know, there isn't really any policy advice on which you could base a decision on that.
Thank you. Who's next? More questions? I'll give it to Councillor Woodhouse first.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question on this one. One of the proposals was for sheep grazing. Now, during the talks earlier, one person said sheep grazing and one person said it could be used for sheep grazing. Can we just confirm what it is going to be? Is it or could be? Because obviously that proposer seems to think that it is going to be used for sheep grazing. There's a bit of confusion out the two comments came out earlier. Could we just have clarity, please?
Again, I'll ask the applicant.
Both of the landowners who are present both currently graze sheep on this site and other sites.
Can I just ask you to clarify your question there? Is there a reason why you've asked?
Yes, part of the solar farm is going to be on our land, and it's got sheep on permanently nearly all the time. That's at the land adjoining Mickey Ford.
Thank you. I think it was a question of, have you seen cattle grazing on that land?
Well, the reason I asked question 4 is it's like one of the people who's actually put in 4, it says one of the positives is for sheep grazing. Now that's misleading. If only half of it's used for sheep grazing, that may have changed their mind as well, might be against it. And also, you know, it keeps going on here about energy security. Our food security is at risk as well. So it's be nice to know is it actually all going to be used for sheep grazing? Because like I said, there's confusion out of them coming over there saying, yes, it is, it could be. So it's not a definite thing. So I think people may be informed it's used for sheep grazing, which they go, oh, that's great. But in reality, not all of it's getting used, and that may change them people's minds and their own opinions of this as well.
So you're asking whether it's definitely going to be used for sheep grazing and nothing else?
Yeah. Yes, it is all going to be used for sheep grazing because that forms part of the management of the grassland and keeps the solar panels clear from the grass and the weeds. So the sheep have to be there as a control measure for the grass.
Thank you. Right, now, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, just a quick one on that one. That debate's been widely discussed in this forum many a time, and I think the conclusion on that is the grass what grows underneath solar panels is no good for sheep. So I just wanted to add that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but just apologies for that statement. It's not a planning consideration, so just to move progress. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll leave that one. Did you raise your hand, Councillor Stevenson?
Yeah. The grass is all right for the sheep on solar panels.
I've got another question. There was mention of a high-pressure gas pipe running through the site, and I was wondering what safety implications that would have with the battery storage system being in relation to that, and what kind of distance is there between the two? And
there's a good distance between them. The gas pipeline is going up the gap through the site there. You've got the batteries off to the west of that. The operator of the gas pipeline's been consulted. They've got no concerns about that. There's a condition recommended to ensure the safety of the gas pipeline during construction. The primary issues is actually traversing it over the roadways. And as long as they're consulted and advised on that in advance and they see the scheme, they've got no issues with the scheme.
Any more questions? Councillor Franklin.
Yeah, on the report it says that there's going to be badger gates and stuff put in for the local wildlife. There's quite a fair bit of woodland around that area, especially one smack bang in the middle of this. My question is, has there been any report done to see if there are any badger sets or anything in that area? Because if there is, it's going to have quite an impact on them.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, badgers have been assessed in the application. As with every application, details about badgers are kept confidential. There are gaps in the fences to allow them to move across the site. And if anything, these types of development that keep mostly dogs out actually benefit mammals such as badger and other small animals like rabbits, hares, etc. We aren't anticipating any harm. We've had no objections from our ecologists on this site. Indeed, there's quite a lot of support for the biodiversity net gain it would bring.
Any more questions? Councillor Woodhouse and then Councillor Hope.
Thanks, Chair. Can we just put the picture up of the entrance, please, for the workers? So looking at that, that's not fit for any HGV traffic or anything on there. So how long is that going to take to clear, get that entrance fit, and what's the impact on the road? Because obviously there's going to be traffic in that blocking up on that road, because obviously looking at the state of that, it's on a blind corner, and it needs a lot of clearing, a lot of work before it accepts any heavy traffic going through it. So what's the impact onto the road and the community getting that entrance ready?
I don't know how long a construction will take them, but
Ask the applicant, how long is construction likely to take? Is it 12 months?
well, we just still could find the access.
Yeah, it's more just for getting that access ready for accepting them HGVs in, because obviously they can't use it now. So there's going to be an impact to that road and the traffic using that road while that's getting ready. So what is the impact to that road, basically, and how long is it going to take? And is it going to be closed off? Is it going to just go down to one lane?
I wouldn't anticipate the road being closed at all. Most of the work can be done from internally. Highways, as you'll see in the report, raised no objections. They've requested conditions be put on. The applicant's own survey advised that the visibility displays would be 160 metres in both directions, which would require trimming back the hedge, and they would be required to be maintained for the lifetime of development. All the works will be done through a Section 184 agreement with the council. I can't really give you much more information on that, but it's a pretty standard site access arrangement. It's not unusual from anywhere else, other than there's already an access there.
So just on that one, when you said hedge trimming, now I've just had a recent report sent back and they refused the hedge trim due to birds nesting and that. So are we putting a limit on when this can start before they knock the hedges down? Because obviously we're being told we can't do any hedge trimming or anything due to birds nesting at the minute.
It's an offence to kill birds, basically, so any works would be done outside that season, otherwise there would be risk of causing an offence. We put an informative on any planning permission to advise them of that.
Thank you.
Is it Councillor Hope? Did you have one more?
Thank you, Chair. In 2023, the Department for Energy and Security and Net Zero stated that the territorial greenhouse gas emissions in the UK was provisionally estimated to have been at 384.2 million tonnes of CO2. This site will reduce carbon emissions by 13,050 tonnes of CO2 annually, a mere scratch on the national estimate, and only 522,000 tonnes of CO2 will be reduced in the 40-year lifespan to reach net zero. We will have to plant solar and wind on every piece of earth in the County Durham, in County Durham.
Kenny, is this more for debate rather than...
No, I'm coming up with a question. So this will mean that we'll have to plant solar and wind on every inch of County Durham's land. Does the council accept to achieve net zero by 2050, our county will be nothing but a solar and wind site, and does this fit into the County Durham plan?
Do you want to answer that, Steve?
Thank you, Chair. Look, I mean, I think it's a fair point to say that the planning policies that inform the County Durham plan were drafted and approved by the Government Inspector before the relevant government green and white papers in terms of climate change and the net zero targets, Chair. I've no doubt as part of work on the new County Durham local plan, which members will be aware we've commenced already, there will be an opportunity to refresh our low carbon policies, and it wouldn't be appropriate today to say which direction those would go. But in terms of where we stand today, I think it's fair to say under the present planning policy framework, both at a national and at a local level in terms of how the application has to be judged, I think it's a fair point to say that the developer doesn't have to demonstrate any particular need for the facility, such as the permissive wording of both national and local planning policy.
Thank you, Steve. I've got a question regarding the proximity of the battery energy storage system to Shotton Catholic School. There were a couple of comments made in writing about concerns the residents had that something, well, you could call it a sensitive development being so close. Can you, there wasn't anything in the report. Can you clarify how close it is to the school?
I don't think I have that measurement, Chair. I wonder if the applicant has that distance.
Yeah, the school is about 800 metres to the east of where the battery is located.
Thank you. More questions, Dawn?
Thank you, Chair. There's been a lot said about this overwhelming support of projects such as this. Obviously, the research was carried out by Solar Energy UK. Is that independent? Is that an independent assessment? And is that Solar Energy UK? Is that what they did around in County Durham, or is that from another analysis, data analysis set that's been done?
I think the applicant can answer that.
I don't think that came from us. Do you know where it...
It was referred to in your socio-economic impact report.
Solar Energy UK are an independent from us. We have just taken those figures which they provide to the industry and put them in the report.
Thank you. Can I ask about the footpaths? It's obviously, we've visited the site and it's an attractive countryside, and noticed that there are, I think, 3 footpaths that traverse across the site. I know they're going to be disrupted temporarily by the construction, but afterwards, do you think that there's an issue there that a public recreation enjoyment of the countryside is going to be vastly diminished by the high visual impact of solar panels rather than countryside?
There's naturally an impact, but I don't think it's significant in this case because of the amount of those footpaths, even on their own, that where there wouldn't be a view, where the screening is already quite significant. Within this view here that we're looking at, that is from one of the rights away looking across the site, and only in less than a quarter of that view would you have solar panels in that view. So I think you are looking at the majority of the site still being open.
Thank you. Have we any further questions, or are we ready to move to debate? Thanks. I'll ask you to move to debate now. Anybody want to say anything? Councillor Wilkes first.
Thanks, Chair. As with all of these applications, it's always a balance between all of the different policies and impacts. I think the one thing that is very clear to me is that with the national policies that we have, and in relation particularly into the quality of farmland, and all of this land is 3B, the fact that it will continue to be grazed, the fact that it will probably actually, the land be returned to a better state afterwards because it will add chance for the soil to improve over however many years. So I still want to listen to what everyone else says on the committee, but I think what is absolutely certain is that this application cannot be rejected on grounds of loss of farmland, because it's actually not going to have a massive impact at all overall, and the national policies would actually prohibit that in a way, because all that would happen is you'd go to the planning inspector and it would be chucked out, and we don't want to see that either. But I'd like to listen to what everyone else's comments are before making any other comments.
Councillor Hope and then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. This year alone, the BBC News on the 7th of May and the 27th of April, The Independent, they have put out headlines saying that there's advanced research innovation from the Advanced Research Innovation Agency, a government-backed body, has funded nearly £60 million that could allow real-world experiments, including the UK, as part of exploring climate cooling programme projects in solar radiation modification. SRM will involve to thicken Arctic sea and ice and make clouds more reflective. My concern here is if the government is going to plough money into reflecting the sun away from us, why are we striving to put all of the solar in if we're trying to dim it at the same time?
I think that's probably taking it a bit too far from the application, but point noted. Anybody else? Sorry, was it Councillor Bell?
Yeah, firstly, Chair, apologies. I thought we were in the debate when I moved that proposal, but I stand by my proposal to refuse on landscape harm. But just to add on to that as well was to, and again I've said it before, like such sites as this, like sort of going forward, like the Durham County Council, we have to have a strategic approach where we identify these sites in the plan rather than coming forward month in, month out on an ad hoc basis as business is at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Any more points to be made? Councillor Wilkes and then Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that any application of this nature would have landscape harm. I think the question we have to ask, if that's the reason that's being proposed for refusal, is whether when you take into account all of the other aspects of the application and all of the benefits of this, and all of the benefits that are in the MPPF related to solar and within our own policies, whether that's sufficient to turn down an application. Looking at all of those positive benefits compared to the visual impact on the landscape, I don't think that that's enough for us to be able to reject this application, and I think there needs to be some additional considerations as to what else there might be, because ultimately we wouldn't want to be leaving this room today with people thinking that we've turned down an application and certain people will be very happy, only to find in a few weeks' time or a few months' time that it simply gets turned back by the inspector and we end up with a huge cost to the council. So at the moment I would not be minded to support what Councillor Bell has put forward as a motion, because I simply don't think it's sufficient in itself.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Freeman.
Councillor David Freeman, Elder Charlesgate and Shincliffe Ward. I'd just like to support Councillor Wilkes in what he's just said. I mean, it's become perfectly clear that there are, there may well be issues about people supporting solar panels and renewable energy full stop here, and I think that certain questions have veered away from the actual planning application that we've got in front of us, and we must look at each individual planning application, not come in with preconceived ideas about what we think about global energy security and net zero, etc. I actually think this is a very good application. It's not without harm. I think we all agree that there is an element of harm here, but that actually overall the scheme is beneficial. Biodiversity will be improved on the site. There will be benefits for energy supply, secure energy supply. If the committee is minded to refuse, I think it will need some solid planning grounds to refuse them, and I haven't heard any such policy grounds to refuse this application up to now. And as Councillor Wilkes said, members and new members can maybe feel some benefit from refusing an application, but applicants can go to appeal, and if there are not solid planning grounds for a refusal, then that appeal will be successful and we will not have achieved what we're here to do, which is to make planning decisions based on our policies.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Anyone anything else to say before we move? So we've reached the point where there's a motion to refuse the officer's recommendation to support the application.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we've got a motion to refuse contrary to recommendation from Councillor Bell, and that's been seconded. It's put forward, as I understand it, on the basis of adverse landscape and visual impact. I think it's implicit in that reason that Councillor Bell takes the view that the benefits are not sufficient to outweigh that harm. I'll pass over to the case officer in a moment just to say a few words about the policy and the strength of that reason. But my view would be that isn't going to be a sustainable reason for refusal on appeal. So I don't think we would win an appeal based on that reason. I think there's likely to be a risk of costs in those circumstances. The policy's, quite clear about the weight to be afforded to the benefits of renewable energy such as this. We've got a whole host of appeal decisions that also support significant weight being afforded to the benefits of renewables. So the long and the short of it is I don't think we'd win an appeal. We're probably at risk of costs. I'll pass over to the planning officer to give his view.
Thank you, Neil. I think to begin with, I want to direct your attention to paragraph 116 of the report. This is in the Principle of Development section. I'll just read this out to you. So the NPPF at part 14, paragraph 161, sets out the planning system should support transition net zero by 2050 and support renewable and low carbon energy and associated infrastructure. Following on for that, paragraph 168 is advised that when determining planning applications for all forms of renewable and low carbon energy developments and their associated infrastructure, local planning authorities should not require excuse me, applicants demonstrate the overall need for renewable or low carbon energy. And at paragraph 167, it should give significant weight to the benefits associated with renewable and low carbon energy generation and the proposal's contribution to a net zero future. Now, I appreciate many of you might not agree with that, but that is the policy background that we have to work to. That's the national policy. So the development has support, whether we like it or not, from national policy. Now, moving back to paragraph, I believe, 49 again. This is the landscape policy that we've already looked at, but just to reiterate, in this context, the site isn't in a designated landscape. It's not a national landscape. It's not an area of high landscape value. I'm not diminishing its value to the local residents or to County Durham as a whole, but it's not designated, so it has less policy protection in this case. So if you're moving towards a refusal based on landscape harm, it must be an unacceptable harm. And further to that, the benefits must be found to not outweigh that unacceptable harm. It's a very high test here. So you need to be very sure if you're moving towards refusal that that's where you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Neil, I was just always on the view, to add other policies in there would be sort of maybe complicate if there ever was such an appeal. But if there was a need to strengthen, I'm happy to the landscape harm outweighs the sort of the benefits. I'm quite sort of comfortable with that. But feel free if you want to add other policy in there as regarding the loss of agricultural land, or will that just sort of complicate things? Or, there's policy 10, 39 and 40.
Yeah,
out my depth naming the policies, and I would look for sort of a helping hand on that one, but I'm clearly comfortable. But from the authorities' sort of position and legal position, feel free if you want to suggest anything to myself, which might sort of beefing up such a refusal.
Chair, I think the position is quite clear that what the motion is in terms of refusal reasons. I don't think Councillor Bell's suggested addition to that is actually going to assist in terms of our ability to defend that on appeal. So my view would be it ought to be, the motion that's been put forward ought to be voted on the basis on which it's been put forward, which is landscape and visual impacts, and the benefits not outweighing that landscape and visual harm.
Thank you.
That's fine, thank you, Neil.
So I think we're ready to put the matter to a vote. Councillor Hope, one must come on.
Yeah, based on the NPPF 15, conserving and enhancing the natural environment, based on that paragraph alone, I have to not agree to approve this.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes.
I'm afraid that I'm going to have to move the counter proposal that we do approve this. There is no impact on farmland which in any shape or form could be considered to be negative. In fact, it'll probably actually improve it over a period of time. Whilst there is an impact upon the landscape of the area, in actual fact a 63 to 65% increase in biodiversity, the planting of however many kilometres of hedgerows, and a whole raft of biodiversity and landscape improvements are proposed, and I simply do not believe that those policies that have been put forward by my colleagues here are sufficient in order to turn down an application, and there are many other reasons why this application would be beneficial. So I would move the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. So we have a motion to refuse, which has been proposed and seconded. Can we put that to the vote? Raise your hands if you support the motion to refuse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 3. The application is refused. Right, that application is now being completed, and we move on to the second application. Chris, if you can present that. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to item 5B. This is an application for a proposed battery energy storage system, again abbreviated to BESS, including associated infrastructure, engineering works, drainage, cabling, landscaping and access. And this is on land to the south and southeast of Porchhouse Farm, East Street, Het. Again, I'm just going to give the update on the conditions on this site, same as the previous application in relation to biodiversity net gain. On this one, it's condition 11 to be deleted, as conditions 12 and 13, again, adequately cover the implementation of the habitat creation works, confirmation to us of such works, and subsequent management in accordance with the Habitats Management Maintenance Plan. Okay. So, members on the trip this morning, we visited the site and parked up to the immediate east of it from the site entrance. We have, where's my pointer at? Tersdale is off to the east. You've got the Amazon units up here. Durham Gate down to the southwest corner here. Village of Het to the north. There's a conservation area buffer around Het Village there. So that's the nearest group of properties, but then there's isolated farms closer, Broomhill Farm, Falls Farm, and Hetmoor Farm to the south there. So this is the aerial view of the site. As we explained on the visit this morning, it's not the entirety of this field, although it's outlined as being all within the landowner's ownership. It's only this section here. So site entrance there, and then the battery units would be within the site here. There's also would be a cable route to the north. Just for clarity on the agricultural land where the site would be located is not best and most versatile. However, there is a patch of area to the north which is, but again that's only for an underground cable, so it will continue to be in agricultural use. So this is a view of the site entrance looking south down Het Mill Lane. This hedgerow that you can see here largely screens the site, but as part of the landscape proposals for the site, this would grow up, and there'll be an additional hedgerow within the site as well, and surrounding it to provide further screening. The battery units themselves actually are further south of the entrance point here, so there wouldn't be a clear view of them into the entrance either. And in any case, there'll be further planting across the site here. So this is a view from the site entrance looking across towards Durham Gate and Spennymoor. Most of the context of the site is shown, just a flat field at the moment. So it's the layout of the site. Within here you've got the site would be scraped of topsoil, which we put in a bund around the perimeter, which would be planted up, and that would add to screening to the north, south and west. Then you'd have an extra row of hedgerow down the east side, in addition to the hedge which is already there and will be allowed to grow a bit taller. This is just extra detail on the landscape planting there. The dark green's the additional planting to screen the site on all sides. So in terms of consultations, we've had no objections from statutory and internal consultees, subject to conditions where appropriate. We've had 25 representations. We've had additional 6 since the report was published, so you'll note a discrepancy in the numbers there. Indeed, there's actually 20 support letters now rather than 19 on the presentation. In terms of objection, the matters raised by members of the public were safety risks from battery fire and toxic emissions, noise impacts, harmful visual and landscape effects, especially near the Het conservation area, loss of agricultural land, heritage impacts, doubts over the developer credibility, and inadequate public consultation. In terms of support, we've had it identified that battery storage is essential for a low-carbon, stable energy system. The site uses poorer quality agricultural land, supports energy security and price stability. The impacts are minimal. Overall, the proposal is environmentally and economically justified. And then in terms of submissions received after the report was published, includes support for the landowner and the financial stability of the farm. It's also stated that the site is very poor in terms of agricultural crops and requires significant intervention in terms of fertilizers and spreading, making the land increasingly unviable for food production. So in summary, the proposal aims to store excess grid power and supply it during high demand, helping balance grid frequency and voltage. The flexible backup supports intermittent renewable energy use, improves renewable efficiency and reduces reliance on fossil fuels. Further benefits of the scheme include biodiversity net gain over and above the 10% required for mitigation, and additional planting for the site and direct employment to the construction industry. Although there will be residual landscape harm arising from this development, both individually and cumulatively with other existing developments in this locality, as well as some immediate impacts during the construction phase, it is considered that the benefits of the proposal outweigh this harm. The proposals have generated significant public interest. Concerns expressed regarding the proposals have been taken into account and carefully balanced against the scheme's wider social, economic and public benefits. All other material considerations have been taken into account in the determination of the application and found to be acceptable. The proposed development is considered to broadly accord with the relevant policies of the County Durham Plan and relevant sections of the NPPF. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Now we have some speakers listed today, but firstly we have Councillor Jan Blakey, who is the ward councillor, and we have 2 objectors and 2 supporters. If we just start with Councillor Jan Blakey, you've got an unlimited time to speak, but obviously you're mindful, we've tried to keep it to 5 minutes as close as possible.
Thank you, Chair. I would ask the committee to take careful consideration on this application. Basically, the proximity to the nearest properties and the conservation area very close by. The impact level on our local footpaths and our wildlife. The safety aspects of the battery plant also I have concerns over, not knowing quite that much about these newfangled things. The employment issues is, while it's being built, I can understand why the local people will be used as subcontracted, but with only 4 to 10 people visiting the site per month, I can't see them being actually local. I can understand both the residents for and against this application, but the loss of more fields in our local area has a long-term effect on our communities. The biggest development area, I think, in the whole of County Durham over the last 10 years. We've took a large chunk with the Integra and Dinford plans coming forward, all within a very short distance of each other. And once these battery storage plants, solar panel farms, which why wasn't the battery storage put in when the solar panel farm came in? I don't know. But once they are developed, I have fears that they will not be turned back into fields. They will become developed land. So, like I say, on my behalf and behalf of the residents, both for and against, I would ask the panel at the committee to take careful consideration to the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jan. We have 2 objectors listed to speak, Miss Jean Wood and a late entrant, Laura Morris, who's actually standing in place of someone who's wanted to register as well. So if we start with Jean Wood, that 5 minutes to be split between yourself and Laura. So you each have 2.5 seconds, well, minutes to speak.
My name's Jean Wood and I've lived in my house for over 40 years. I come from a farming background, so I have a good idea about the land around me. This development is only going to be 400 metres away from my house, which is next to Falls Farm, which has been mentioned, but no mention of my house at all. The development would involve transformative change from open arable farmland to one being dominated by industrial buildings. Even the landscape officers stated that the development would cause harm to the character, quality and distinctness of the local landscape. Not only that, there's going to be cumulative effects of the energy projects in the area. Already at Thinford Electric Substation, 2 battery storage have already been passed. Further along the road from where we live, there's going to be a solar farm already passed. And then there's a proposed further BESS in that actual solar farm area. Do we really need 4 BESS in such close proximity? This is a quiet country lane, even mentioned by TripAdvisor, but the area, including the PRWs, would be impacted in terms of views and enjoyment of the area. Both national and Durham plans both state to maintain and improve access to the countryside for pedestrians, cyclists and horse riders. This is going to stop all of that. There are ongoing debates in Parliament about best safety, as well as about farmers
30 seconds remaining.
Degrading their land in order to attain lucrative deals offered by developers. This land is 3B and in part 3A. And in the paperwork, it's alluded to more development. This land will never go back to farmland. There's going to be too many toxins left.
Thank you.
It's okay. I can continue if you don't mind, please.
I think have you got much longer to go?
She can take some of my time, that's fine.
That's fine then, yeah.
Thank you. The National Planning Policy is 4.1 refers to good quality pre-application. There has been a total lack of proper consultation for such a development. The letter from the developers was so unprofessional, I just thought it was junk mail. It was not even possible to work out from the photograph where it was going to be, and a few battery units were shown. A basic question: what is the capacity of this? Durham County Council published responses which we adhered to as 4 objectives. After May the 1st local authority election results and the parish council meeting, support letters were accepted. Why? It's commendable that Friends of the Farmer had the insight to write these letters of support at such a late stage. This is a relatively new technology with fire, explosion and thermal runaway causing toxic gases, all possibilities. Prevailing winds could not only put us in danger, but the village, which is in very close proximity. Where is the emergency response plan? And why has the recommendations of the National Fire Chiefs Council not been followed? That is at least 2 separate
1 minute remaining of the 5 minutes.
2 separate access points. Liverpool and Essex both had best incidents. People, animals and the environment will be at risk. On a personal level, our health and mental well-being is being tested now. But if this goes ahead, are we expected to live in fear of explosion, fire and toxic gases? I'm appealing to everyone's common sense here to reject this application and ask you, especially you, Chris, would you like to live in fear for the rest of your life in your house? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, if you want to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Just if I could just make a point about the Speaker's reference to Chris here as case officer, and just remind all members that the reports go out in the name of the head of planning, and it's a bit disappointing, in my opinion, for a personal comment such as that to be made today.
Thank you. I think we've run out of time. Just 15 seconds left, Laura. So.
Well, before I do, I'd also like to clarify, I was not a late addition. I actually registered to speak before the deadline, but my name wasn't added to the list. And I'm also not speaking on behalf of someone else. So
I didn't mean to misrepresent it. It's just slight confusion at the beginning of the meeting about what was happening.
that's fine. There's obviously communication issues because I've emailed the council a few times and not had replies. I will take my 15 seconds though.
Thank
that's
you.
Fine.
Go ahead.
Yep, so I have two concerns, and I just want to highlight in the documentation we were sent, and excuse me, I need to find the relevant bit, 35 items in the NFCC Best Guidance Checklist Summary, of which there were 21 that were not complied with, and that's because the design hasn't been finalised yet. And importantly, the smoke fume analysis has not been conducted. Now, considering how close this is to properties, that is concerning because these fumes will be toxic, and it's not an insignificant risk of that explosion.
Thank you, Laura. I think that's your time now. So we have two people to speak for the applicant, Mr. Stuart Hammond and Mr. or Mrs. Gregory, and you each have 2.5 minutes.
Chair, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is John Gregory. I'm the owner and farmer at Porch House Farm in Het, where my family has farmed for nearly 100 years. I'm here today to speak in support of the application on a small part of our land, just under 5% of the farm's total area. This is a farm-led initiative, not speculative development. NRA Power is a UK-based company working with regional contractors. We support them fully. Me and my family are multi-generational family of farmers. Like many farms across the UK, we face increasing uncertainty, input costs have risen, and the subsidy system is changing and rapidly reducing. Extreme weather is making our work more and more unpredictable. A case in point, my grass yields have been half this year. The development will provide us with the financial stability we need to keep farming. Not just now, but for the future generations. My father passed this farm down to me, and I want to do the same for my children. It allows us to stay on the land, invest in more efficient equipment and in our livestock, protect jobs on the farm and in the rural supply chain. It also helps us avoid the difficult decision of selling off land or buildings just to stay afloat. Most importantly, we work carefully to locate the schemes on land that is not classified as best and most versatile. It's one of our least productive fields, difficult to work with heavy soils that produce poor yields consistently. This has been independently confirmed through an agricultural land classification study. Post-operation, the site will be restored to agricultural use, with the topsoil retained on site for this purpose. I know this land, and I know this is the right location on the farm. There are other benefits. It enables enough electricity to be stored for 35,000 homes. It delivers a significant biodiversity net gain, with an increase of 10.93% for habitats and 12.29% for hedgerows. It provides landscape with existing field boundaries retained, new hedgerows planted and gaps closed, and leaves visual impacts located with wider views limited by terrain and vegetation. Safety, decommissioning and restoration are all secured by planning conditions. There are no
30 seconds remaining.
There are no adverse impacts as confirmed by officers. The development is over 240 metres from the nearest homes, ensuring no unacceptable fire risk or noise impact. There are no objections from the council's ecology officer, highways officer, heritage officer, landscape or tree officers or noise officers. Construction access will avoid Het Village being via the A688. The site lies outside the conservation area and the area of higher landscape value.
So the next 2.5 minutes is also going to be from Mr. Gregory as the farmer, because he's best placed to talk about his farm and the difficulties.
Yeah, thank you. That's fine.
Thank you. Community support. 20 letters, 14 of which are from local residents and also business and parish councillors, note the value of renewable energy, the benefits of sustaining my farm and the wider rural economy, and the lack of impacts likely to arise. There is no objection from the Fire and Rescue Service, who welcome direct engagement from NRA. NRA Power is a UK-based company committed to using local supply chains and developing local skills. In short, this proposal is supported by the local community, delivers national policy objectives, protects the best land on our farm for food production, supports the family farm and rural economy by sustaining and creating jobs, and strengthens the UK's national grid resilience, all whilst respecting the local landscape in Het Village. I kindly ask for your support with this application, safeguarding the future of a hard-working family farm and allow my children to farm without the financial pressures that we are facing daily. The pressures we face daily, be it from the weather, government policy or lack of cash flow, and never knowing where the funds are available to pay the next bill. The best would provide help to alleviate these problems so that my children don't have to face the same as what I've had to face in the last 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, do you want to make any comment on what's been said?
Yeah, I think we'll just review some of the issues about safety risk. As per the previous application, the fire service was consulted both at pre-application stage and during consideration of the application. In this situation, the fire service have commented and have raised no objections. There is a condition there for a fire safety plan to be agreed prior to the commencement of development. As I set out to members on the bus trip this morning, we shouldn't be planning for any development to be on fire. That's not how it should be. Planning should assume that things operate correctly. I do recognise that in case of this type of development, because of the concerns, it is a relevant consideration, and I think we've considered that appropriately in the report and had the backing of the fire service on that issue. In terms of footpaths and enjoyment of the area, there are none through the site. I've had no objections from the Public Rights of Way service. In terms of consultation, we consulted everyone widely. I can't comment on what the applicant did themselves, but we did everything correctly on that front. Thank you.
Thank you. Now open the matter for questions from the members. Councillor Wilkes.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to try and understand the second objector commented about certain things that hadn't been received or carried out at this stage. And I just want to understand from the planning officers, because it was difficult because the lady clearly didn't have very much time to speak. But I think it's really important that we understand whether or not the applicant has actually done what they should have done in providing the relevant documentation and surveys and other things before we make any decisions.
Thank you. Apologies, I'm just rolling back. Mr. Gregory, there was a little bit of time left after you finished speaking, so I don't know if Mr. Hammond wants to just add anything else. I think that's only fair.
Thank you, Chair and members. I just wish to reinstate what Mr. Gregory said. It's a farm-led initiative. We've worked directly with him and his partner, and we understand that there are several different farming pressures applied to his farm as across the UK. Now, he has mentioned that it's under pressure and, you know, he doesn't want to sell off land. He wants to grow his business. That's jobs, that's job creation, that's sustaining the current jobs. We've used local people, we've used H&H land assessors to look at the land before we had to dig it for trial trenching. And also Vickers and Barris are in the room and they support the application too, and they're a local part of the rural economy. Mr. Gregory's partner works in the local cattle farm and we've received a lot of support from them too. And just to reinstate or restate that, there was 2 parish councillors in support who live in Het. And then further to that, there are residents in Het that support this, that significantly outweigh the objections. Thank you very much, and I hope that you support this application.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Right, apologies, Councillor Wilkes. If you just want to restate your question so we're clear.
Yes, so I've had a look at the list of comments about objections, and in that list in the report there is no mention of the issues that the second objector raised. I wasn't fully understanding exactly what she said because it was difficult with the short period of time, but I just want either, if possible, for that lady to explain what she meant, and also for officers to confirm whether or not the applicant has provided all of the necessary information and done all of the necessary impact assessments that we would expect. If not, whether or not that is conditioned, and whether that is actually normal, that this wouldn't be done in advance of us sitting here discussing it.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, so we welcome questions on fire risk and we welcome questions on safety. In response to the councillor's question, we engaged with a company called Green Fire Engineering, who is made up of ex-fire chiefs, one of which was Durham and Darlington's fire chief. And they take us through the process, which is using the NFCC guidance as a tool to inform the design and layout of the BES. So we provide sufficient spacing, we provide 2 accesses, those 2 accesses can be seen on a layout plan, and we basically ensure that where we have fixed the layout, it meets the NFCC guidance. That's the National Fire Chief Commissioner's guidance, I think, off the top of my head. That being said, we've also engaged with Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue, and they raised no objection, and they welcomed the early engagement. So my point there is, and what the lady said was talking that we supported our application with a verification and compliance document, which basically took the reader through that National Fire Guidance step by step to set out what was compliant with at the time, so the layout, and what will be complied with and what can be controlled when we pick the batteries, when we buy the batteries. Now, with regards to the process of control and the pre-commencement condition that's been applied, that means that a spade won't go in the ground until Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue Service agree that that is safe and the technology is safe, it's been procured correctly, and there's enough safety standards there to ensure that the fire risk is minimised to the lowest point. My utmost concern is safety. I would not put a battery storage plan or battery storage development somewhere where I feel that not only residents but also the fellas that go and put fires out and the ladies are at jeopardy, and that is hand on heart.
Thank you. I think Councillor Wilkes, you meant the question to Laura Morris, didn't you? And I can ask the lady to follow up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there was a mention about the impacts of any smoke should there be an accident, and I think there was the suggestion that there hadn't been a smoke impact assessment done, and it was like, I think that's what was asked, but if we could clarify, please. I think it is important.
Yes, that's exactly it. So there's 35 items listed. 21 of those are not currently compliant because of the design, but there is no smoke plume analysis included in the documentation. And so my concern is that that's not something you can fix with the design of the batteries. That's purely based on the location and the proximity to the village. So my concern is that analysis has not been conducted, so therefore the site location cannot be determined to be safe.
Thank you. Chris, is there anything you want to add to that?
I appreciate the concerns, but it's not a material plan consideration. As I said, the development isn't supposed to be on fire. It has been set quite some distance from properties, and as we can see on the layout, and as Mr. Hammond has said, there's 2 entrances for fire service to attend it, should they ever need to, and hopefully they never do.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Bellingham.
Thank you, Chair. I just look at paragraph 12 with regards to the CCTV cameras. There's not a great deal of detail there. I think PIR, CCTV, PTZ, and what they're there, it says to directed inward to ensure security. So the threat is that against sabotage, fire, theft, break-in. So it's just because if they're able to be moved around, people that are walking past there, etc., they just might feel that their privacy's being invaded a little bit.
Thank you. I think, Chris, you might want to answer that.
Yeah, I think the applicant might have some comment as well, but my initial comment on the location of them within the site, they're on 3-metre columns, and the intention is to grow the exterior hedge to 3 metres along with the bunding and planning inside. They shouldn't be able to see outside the site anyway, but added to that, there aren't any public rights-of-way through the site. So I don't think there's going to be, well, no, I can say clearly there will be no impact on privacy there. But added to that, it's a public area anyway, the road. So whilst they shouldn't hit the road, I don't think that'd be an issue, but I'll hand over to the applicant in case they have further comment.
Certainly, thank you, Chris. So they face inwards, and they basically, if that perimeter's broken and the fences, because these are batteries, so if people get in the site, they're switched on and they can start recording, and we can be notified of that incident, and we can get a response out to manage that, whoever may be trespassing. It's just a standard security measure that we have, but they focus in, not out.
Okay, thank you. Just it says as well, there's no security lighting proposed, but obviously if they are PIR and then they do switch on, then there's going to have to be some sort of lighting to help detect because that's what CCTV does. It detects, and you're going to have a certain amount of light to see what you're doing.
If the councillor is minded to suggest a condition specifically on the CCTV design, we'd be happy to take that, so that concern can be managed, so that there would be no undue acceptable impact from the operation of the CCTV.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Wilkes?
Yeah, I'm sorry to come back to this issue in relation to smoke assessments and the like, but I do disagree if what the officer was suggesting was that there isn't some kind of material planning requirement to actually know that the necessary assessments have been done. I would say that a smoke assessment for a battery farm, a BES, is crucial to ensure that the potential fire risks have been mitigated. And so, I mean, I have to say, we've got 2.5 gigawatts of electric coming in off the North Sea into Hawthorne Pit. I know, I'm probably one of the people who would be saying we should be making sure we've got sufficient battery storage in order to be able to store offshore wind so it can be used overnight. But I'm not willing to support a planning application if I can't see that the necessary safety requirements have been covered and the necessary assessments. And I appear to be getting from the officer a suggestion that it is not necessary to show that there has been a smoke assessment done. And I think we need to understand, is that the case or not? Because if it is the case that smoke assessment and the other elements that the lady has suggested have not actually been done, then I would ask for deferral until they are.
Thank you. Neil?
Chair, I'm not an expert on sort of fire safety or the type of analysis or assessments that have been referred to. I'll hand over to the planning officer in a minute, but my basic understanding of this is we would take our advice on this issue from the fire service. They're being consulted, they haven't objected. There's a condition that's to be imposed on that. So I'm struggling with Councillor Wilkes's sort of view that it's potentially refusable on the basis of something that is effectively outside of our control.
Sorry, Chair, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting it's refusable on that ground. What I'm saying is that if there are requirements for assessments to be done, and it could be biodiversity, it could be anything else. We get told here, if you've brought an application forward and you've not done a biodiversity assessment, sorry, go away and come back. Well, the same stands here, is that if all of the necessary documentation assessments haven't been done for a planning application, then we shouldn't be even discussing it until that information has been provided to us, unless officers can give us a guarantee here and now that the issues that the lady raised are not actually a problem at all, because everything is fully conditioned. But if it isn't fully conditioned, then it needs to come back on another date when we've got that documentation.
Chair, I'm not aware that that's a requirement of a planning application, but I'll hand over to the planning officers to clarify that.
Dave?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as members might be aware, and I think Councillor Wilkes will be, I think we might have discussed this in the past, Mark. For different types of planning applications, we have what's known as a planning validation checklist, which is available to view on the website. And that, as the name suggests, it sets out different types of documents that an applicant has to submit to make a particular type of planning application valid. So on the most straightforward type of planning application, a house extension, that would be simple plans, essentially. On complex planning applications, you can get 20 or 30 supporting documents covering the key planning issues. That validation list has been endorsed through the relevant processes, and the long and short of it, Chair, is that it doesn't require that type of assessment to be done for this type of planning application. And again, just having a quick chat with Chris there, I think in our professional knowledge, we aren't aware of one of these type of reports ever being asked for this type of planning application.
So I think you're asking for something that isn't required, and therefore I think we can proceed with the application. Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. I share Councillor Wilkes' concerns on that. So obviously, if there's nothing in policy at the moment to carry out these assessments, can we look at putting something in place for these assessments based on health and safety?
Well, I can't really answer that here and now. It's something for future consideration when the overall policy plan's reviewed. So at this point, we'll continue.
Thank you, Chair.
Further questions? Nothing? Would you now like to move to debate? Has anybody got anything to say? Councillor Freeman?
Yeah, it's really not so much that I've got much to say, other than I'm happy to recommend approval of the application because I can't see any reason why we wouldn't approve it.
Second, Councillor Schumann, thank you. So we can put a motion forward to approve the application as recommended by the officer. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Application approved. And we're now moving on to the final application, and Claire will present this application for you.
Good afternoon. This is item 5C, and it's the application for the demolition of the existing buildings and redevelopment of Durham Academy, Rushmoor. There are a few updates that I need to advise the committee about since publication of the report. The report at paragraph 149 refers to the submission of an update to the construction management plan and to a reconsultation that would not be concluded until, well, prior to publication of the report. And within that paragraph, we state that there would be an update given to you. And I can advise that the relevant consultees have responded and have raised no matters additional to those that aren't already set out in the officer report. And that's also the case in respect of the update to the construction surface water management plan that I refer to in paragraph 273 of the report. In addition, there's been a consultee response from Active Travel England, and that advises that as there's already been comments from the Council's Active Travel Officer, based on Active Travel England's planning assessment toolkit, it doesn't intend to provide a further assessment. In terms of drainage, the report advises that there would be a risk downstream at the 1 in 100 year event for the time between the completion of the new building and the installation of a proposed attenuation tank. But this depends upon Northumbrian Water's network capacity, and it would be for a limited period of about 11 months. At the time of publication of the report, Northumbrian Water hadn't responded to the consultation. It now has, and it advised that it doesn't have any issues with the application, provided that it's carried out within strict accordance with the submitted drainage philosophy, which reflects its pre-planning inquiry advice and also takes into account the proposed surface water flows during construction. So although there is still a flood risk at this 1 in 100 year event, Northumbrian Water is advising that it's happy so long as the construction phase, as long as during the construction phase and until the completion of the surface water drainage on site, the flows don't exceed what's currently being discharged from the site. And it should be noted that those flow rates during construction are similar to the high flow rates that now already exist at the school. And it should also be noted that the developer would require a separate Northumbrian Water consent for surface water discharge. Northumbrian Water has also requested a condition requiring that the development takes place in accordance with the drainage philosophy, and that the drainage scheme ensures that foul flows discharge to the combined public sewer. If planning permission is granted, then this is a condition that can be added to the schedule of conditions. Also just want to mention a change to 2 conditions. One, condition 13, contains a superfluous word. It says court. And again, if planning permission was granted, we'd just delete that. Also, as Chris referred to before about changing one of their habitat creation conditions, in this case, for this application, condition 22 would be deleted, as conditions 23 and 24 adequately cover the implementation of the habitat creation works. So that would be another recommendation. In terms of the site, the application site and its location are described in paragraphs 1 to 15 of the committee report. And the site comprises the existing Durham Academy buildings and playing fields as outlined on the site edged red, on the outline on the red. The Academy is located in Nusha Moor, which is approximately 4 kilometres west of Durham city centre, with Bear Park lying to the north. The site is situated within a semi-open setting and is bound by Woodland Road and Victor Terrace to the north along here. And then you have White House Court Road and Bracken Court just along the area to the south. Although the application boundary covers the whole site, development's only proposed in the area where the existing buildings are, which is in this area around here. There are residential properties on White House Court and Bracken Court to the southeast, and these are the closest to the proposed development, again along this area here. Further removed from the site are residential properties to the southeast at Middlewood and to the north along Woodland Road and Victor Terrace and Reservoir House. Access to the Academy is via White House Court Lane, which is just, as I say, along here.
Sorry, Chair, could I just interrupt and just ask, because we can't see any dots or anything appearing on the
How can you not see my mouse?
No, nothing.
Sorry, what I'm looking at, I've got my mouse and it's sort of showing on that area. Sorry. Sorry, I thought you could see it. Why is that? Why is that not working? Oh, right. Okay, sorry about that. In that case, I think what I would just sort of highlight, because you can see from here, this is Woodhouse Road along here and Victor Terrace. This is White House Court and Bracken Court along here. These are the cluster of buildings, the existing buildings, this one here being the existing 2-storey building, and this one here being the current teaching block, which is made up of a 3-storey building, a 2-storey building and a 1-storey building. We also have Middle Hope along here, and you can just sort of see from there. So, as I say, access to the Academy is via White House Court Road, just along there, off Bracken Court. Car parking is currently located in the north and east of the site, and there are no ecological or designated heritage assets located within the site. The exception being that the open space and playing fields in the north of the school are within the green belt designation, as designated in the County Durham Plan. And there's also a public right-of-way which sort of runs along the boundary of the site, which wouldn't be affected by the proposed development. This is just showing the aerial photograph, which just gives you a further appreciation of the site and its surroundings. These are photographs of the two-storey building to be demolished. This was constructed between 1961 and 1970 and closed in 2022 due to health and safety concerns. This is the current main teaching block with the combination of a one-storey block, the two-storey block and the three-storey block, which are to be demolished. And this is referred to in the committee report as the three-storey building. These are existing buildings that would be retained and refurbished. The building with the orange trim is a two-storey teaching block to the east of the site, which currently houses the kitchen and dining facilities, as well as some specialist teaching areas. The other building is the Sir Bobby Robson Sports Centre, which is that one there. Refurbishment works are proposed to these two buildings, but those in themselves wouldn't require planning permission. The report refers to land in the green belt where parking is proposed, and these are photographs of the area, this one being in the existing car parking area, and the green belt designation actually takes in some of the Sir Bobby Robson building, some of the car park designation. The other area, which is referred to in the report for a temporary contractor's car parking area, is in this area here. And these are just two views. It would just be in front of those group of trees there. And just showing a little bit closer, it would be across this area here. And this plan just basically shows you the areas that the buildings that would be demolished. And as we said earlier, this being the two-storey building, and then these being the combination of the one-storey, two-storey and three-storey buildings. Details of the proposal are set out in paragraphs 17 to 31 of the report. Now, works would commence with the demolition of the two-storey disused building, and this would be followed by the construction of a new three-storey building on virtually the same footprint. Alterations to the car park on the eastern part of the site would then take place, which would then be followed by the demolition of the main teaching block. This in turn would be followed by the installation and connection to the proposed attenuation tank, provision of an outdoor terrace dining area, along with associated picnic benches, and also the formation of two hard-placed social courts and landscaping. And refurbishment works to those two buildings that I just mentioned would take place at the same time as the demolition of the second buildings. All of the approximate timings are set out in paragraph 18 of your report, and the whole development is expected to take approximately 25 months. And as you can see, this showing, I appreciate you might not be able to see it too clearly, but this showing the new two-storey building, and then where the other buildings had been demolished, you've got the social court area and an outside dining area as well. These are just some elevations to give you an idea of how it's proposed to look, the new teaching building, which, as I say, would be 3 stories. You can see the sort of the front elevation here, the south elevation. This would be what would meet you when you entered the school, and then the west elevation as well. We then have the north and east elevation, and then these are some visualizations of how it would look, you know, come completion. In terms of consultations and representations, these are set out in paragraph 74 to 95 of the report. There are no objections from statutory and internal consultees, subject to conditions where appropriate. I've previously mentioned the comments of drainage and coastal protection and the response from Northumbrian Water to the application, and these are summarised on this screen. I've also mentioned as well that we've received a response from Active Travel England, and paragraph 208 of the report sets out the DCC Active Travel Officer comments, and the officer response to those comments are set out in 209 and 210. There's been one representation received from a local resident, and they've offered comments which they consider would improve the scheme, and it's suggested that car parking on residential streets be restricted to residents only, and that school buses use a one-way system entering Bratton Court from the west of the Academy entrance and exiting to the south past the Sir Bobby Robson Centre instead of passing each other on Bracken Court. Now, the matters that's been raised by the representation are addressed in the report at paragraph 200. In summary, the proposed development would provide an enhanced modern quality education facility on a site that's currently in use for educational purposes. Furthermore, it would also provide a significant benefit to the community, and it would be sustainable and well designed and be in keeping and complementary to its surroundings. Consideration has been given to the main planning issues associated with this development, and it's acknowledged that there would be potential for temporary disturbance to local amenity, but this would be time limited and necessary to deliver this new improved development. There would be a risk of flood risk for a limited period of time during the works, but Northumbrian Water has advised that it's no issue with the application, provided it's carried out in accordance with the submitted documents. Greenbelt harm has also been assessed in terms of the car parking, and very special circumstances have been found to exist in respect to the proposed temporary car park. The proposal has been assessed against relevant development plan policies and material considerations, and subject to conditions where appropriate, the impacts are considered to be acceptable. The proposal has generated limited public interest, with one representation having been received, and those concerns have been taken into account and carefully balanced against the benefits of the scheme in terms of modern education provision. The proposed development is considered to broadly accord with the relevant policies of the County Durham Plan and relevant sections of the NPPF. So in recommendation, I recommend that the application be approved, subject to the prior paying of £4,224 for the monitoring of on-site biodiversity net gain provision, and subject to the conditions set out in the report as amended by my earlier update, and also with the addition of the Northumbrian Water condition that again were mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. We have two speakers listed here. I've got two supporters, Laura Chandler and Alison Jobling. Are you both here today? Right. You each have 2.5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Laura Chandler. I'm from DBP. I'm the planning agent. Thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak, and we welcome the officer's recommendation of approval. The application is for the demolition of two buildings constructed in the 1960s within Durham Academy, referred to as buildings EFAA and EFAD. Building EFAA has been vacant since 2022 and is currently unusable by the school. Building EFAD is experiencing age-related wear and tear. It is proposed to replace the two buildings with a new school building alongside landscaping enhancements and additional outdoor play and social space. Alongside this, internal refurbishment works are proposed to the Sir Bobby Robson Sports Centre and a further school building. The proposed new teaching block will be built on existing hard standing in the similar location of the demolished EFAA building and can accommodate up to 500 pupils. The layout and location of the new building will provide functional benefits to the school, and with the works delivered under the government's school rebuilding programme. The new building sits at a lower ground level than the building to be demolished, and there is no greater impact in height of the main facade when viewed from residential properties to the south. Vehicle access and egress is as existing from White House Court with a one-way in and out system. 76 staff and visitor parking spaces are provided alongside 2 minibus spaces. A bus and taxi drop-off area is provided to prevent any queuing on the highway, and this provides a public benefit for residents of White House Court and Bracken Court. Enhanced cycle parking is provided and pedestrian access would continue as existing. The proposal accords fully with national and local planning policy, and there are no outstanding objections from consultees. Any conditions can secure any mitigation required to control environmental impact during the construction period. Regarding sustainability, the development takes a systematic approach to minimise carbon impacts and will be zero carbon in operation.
30 seconds remaining.
It will be one of the most energy efficient buildings in County Durham and support the Council's climate change priorities. Ecological surveys have been undertaken and biodiversity net gain of 16.45% is achieved on site. We respectfully ask members to follow officer recommendation for approval and support provision of a new educational building for the Academy, providing benefits to the school, pupils and local community. Thank you, and I would like now to hand over to Mrs Alison Jobling, who is the head teacher of Durham Academy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Alison Jobling and I have the privilege of being the head teacher at Durham Academy in Ushamoor. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of our pupils, our staff, families and wider community. Our current school buildings have served us well over the decades, but they have now sadly reached the end of their usable life. The infrastructure is outdated, increasingly difficult and costly to maintain, and no longer meets the needs of modern teaching and learning. While our staff work tirelessly to create a positive environment, they are constantly battling the constraints of a building that is no longer fit for purpose. The proposed new build represents more than bricks and mortar. It is an investment in the children of Ushamoor, an investment that will echo for generations to come. This new facility will provide exceptional purpose-built learning spaces that honour the commitment of our staff and the potential of every child who walks through our doors. It will offer classrooms filled with natural light, flexible spaces for collaboration and access to modern technology that enhances education. It would be a place where learning is not limited by the constraints of life-expired buildings, but instead inspired by a vibrant and safe environment. For our staff, it will mean being able to focus entirely on delivering high-quality education our children deserve. For our pupils, it will mean taking pride in their school, knowing they are valued and knowing their community believes in their future. And for Ushamoor, this new build will build on the strong community work already in place and become a hub, a place that strengthens community ties, hosts events, supports families and becomes a beacon of hope and progress in our village. We believe our children are worthy of the very best. This scheme offers them that chance. I respectfully urge you to support this proposal, not only for the benefit of our school, but for the promise it holds for Ushamoor as a whole. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Claire, nothing to add to that? Any questions from the members? Councillor Wilkes.
Chair, I mean, it's clearly a no-brainer to approve this amazing plan for all the kids across the DNS Valley. And to see a zero-carbon school as well, we should be very proud of this. I would ask under condition 7 at page 158 that if it's not appropriate for external work to start before 8 o'clock, I don't see why internal noise, which can be heard outside, should start at 7:30 when it's so close in proximity to 20 metres from the householders there. And I don't know if that's just an error in the conditions, but I don't think they should be allowed to start before 8 o'clock if they're going to be making noise that people can hear outside.
Thank you. Over to you, Claire.
This was recommended by our environmental health officer, which basically the intention is that they could sort of do works, you know, like within the school once constructed, so they might do painting or carpentry, and so it just would be that they could do those works because they wouldn't cause disturbance to anything outside.
Sorry, if I could come back on that, Chair, because it specifically says no internal works audible outside of the site boundary shall take place on the site, other than between the hours of 7:30 and 7:30 in the morning and 6 p.m. Well, clearly, if those, what that suggests is that between 7:30 and 8 in the morning, you can make as much noise as you like, even if it does impact people outside of the site boundary. That's exactly what the wording says, because the first paragraph talks about not being allowed to start work outside of the buildings until 8 o'clock. So it's nonsensical to have two different times for those two things.
As I say, I think the intention is that you could do internal works, but I mean, I think that's sort of something that we could look to, you know, change to 8 o'clock to make it the same time so that it's not confusing. Because if you've thought that it's confusing, I would hate anybody else to think that.
Would it negatively impact the timetable for achieving the construction if it was pushed back to 8 o'clock?
No, I don't believe so. I think it would be fine if we could just alter that condition to change the hours to 8 o'clock and then it's 8 o'clock across the board. just to avoid any confusion to residents and staff alike.
Thank you. Any more questions? And are we wanting to debate this at this point? Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. As Mark says, it's a no-brainer on this one, and just to, if nobody has anything else to say, just to move officer's recommendation with the condition as discussed. Thank you, Chair.
Seconder? Right. Councillor Freeman, you first. So I think we're ready to put that one to the vote then, that the recommendation is approved. Yeah. Unanimously approved the application. Thank you. So I think that concludes today's business. Thank you very much.
Could I just ask something under any, just for a future meeting, if possible, if we could get some kind of briefing perhaps from officers on what the impacts of refusing applications, if there's that results in something being overturned by the inspector, and what kind of money we actually have to pay for this, because a single application would probably burn a hole in most of the reserve that's available for that kind of situation.
Do you want to comment on that, Steve?
It's certainly something we can provide, Chair, and I would suggest it's maybe something that we may want to talk through with the chairs and the vice chairs potentially at a future meeting. I know we talked about once we got the first couple of meetings out the road, but more than happy to bring a report back to committees as we see fit at a future date.
Yes, that's agreed, yeah. Meeting closed. Thank you.